and having one of those days.
You're good.
All good?
They're up and rolling whenever.
So it is, oh, Jordan is there, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
He's up at the corner there.
perfect. So can we call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, December 16th? Let's go right to adoption of the agenda. Is there any additions or?
I just wanted to advise council that item 10.9 on your agenda tonight, the report that you had originally seen has been changed, and so we've replaced it with the different report. So whatever you may have read, I apologize for that. We ran into a matter that we had to go through on this particular topic this morning, which we met and we sorted out. So this is a revised report in the event that you did review it over the weekend.
Do you have a motion to adopt?
I'll move the motion of the agenda.
I'll second. Oh, that's fine.
Okay, all in favor? Perfect.
Aye.
Carried. All right, let's go to number 3, which is adoption of the minutes. Motions to move November 25th. Do we motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes as presented for November 25th, 2020.
Any seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and so that's motion is carried. Let's go right into it. 3.2, business arising from the minutes. I guess that doesn't really change anything, right? 3.2?
It's just the,
Just the underneath, okay, perfect. So, the appointments to the regional boards and committees and boards, sorry. I guess, so can we do this in two separate, can we do this in two separate ways where we can move to have all the ones that were appointed on that suggestion list and then move to doing the secret ballot? Is that what we're doing? Is that how we're doing it?
Yeah, that's the only one that there's an issue with, Mayor. So like all you need to do is get a resolution to appoint them as presented, excluding the original waste entity, and then you've got a process that you want to communicate to your council tonight on.
Okay, perfect. So is anybody willing to, I guess, motion that that we go ahead as presented, that was sent in this document, minus the Lac La Ronge Regional Waste Management Corporation, which my suggestion would be to have Joe, Abby, Hugh speak for a couple minutes about what their plan and sort of perspective of moving forward with that, and then we go to secret ballot. Is sort of how I want this to work tonight, if that's possible.
I'll move that. Ryan.
okay, thanks, Ryan.
Jordan, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that motion's carried. So I don't know what the formal process of this, Dean, is, but I mean, can we just have the councillors speak for a couple minutes about their placement, and then obviously, as you guys know, there are two positions that are available, and then there has been some conversation from the board at the Waste Management Corporation saying that a member at large can be appointed, but of course that's not really, it's at their discretion, not ours. So how I kind of would like this to go forward is maybe we can start with Councillor, we'll start with Councillor Watt, and then we'll keep this short and sweet. We'll go 2 minutes, if we can time that, and then go to secret ballot.
Okay.
So you have the floor, Councillor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I bring to waste management is a long-term familiarity with the organization, with both the landfill and the recycle depot. With respect to the landfill, over the past 3 years, I've played a major role in the turning a non-compliant solid waste dump site into the first of its kind in the NAD, a government-approved waste management facility. Fighting for the items like the hydrocarbon contaminated soil land farm, dealing with leachate generated from a dump into, again, a state-of-the-art facility dealing with the environmental issues which coincide with a non-compliant dump. My years of experience in earthworks and practical experience in moving the moving of water and buying and selling of heavy equipment, the designing of heavy equipment shops over a number of years, brings a level of expertise to that table. In closing, over the next year, the corporation will be entering into the next phase of implementing the trucking operation, bringing solid waste in from our expanded partnerships throughout the north. So I respectfully ask for the mayor's support and the support of other council in being appointed to that waste management board.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Gadisky.
I think I've had an interest in regional waste right from the get-go. I was one of the founding members to get the regional corporation set up. And even prior to that, I was responsible for getting the recycling building put in place even before that. We had lots of growing pains. We were dealing with a site that was non-compliant, and we did things during that period of time to address that. And 8 years ago, when I got back on council, at that point, the corporation had lost its corporate status. And basically the town was going to revert back to just a town landfill. And we wouldn't have this regional facility right now if that would have happened, because we would have had no coordination to get that money put together and get that program put in place. So over the years, I've never missed a meeting, attended all the time. Like I said, I've been a little disappointed with some of the recycling that's happened over the past while. I think that needs to be addressed, because if we allow cardboard to be just dumped in truckloads in a new landfill, what's it going to do to the life of that landfill? So I think we've got to look proactively at moving that material to places that are recycling and be engaged in that, as well as setting the parameters around, or being a part of setting the parameters of running a new landfill, setting the fees and those kinds of things that are very sensitive at times.
Okay, thank you. And let's go to, sorry, just before I pass it to Councillor Bashara, Dean is just wondering about, what is our plan for that?
So I've got paper ballots for those that are present. The ones that are attending electronically, are you able to quickly send me an email of your selections, and then I can tally them up? I know that, it takes away from the secrecy for those three. However, I can delete the emails, immediately if you're so comfortable, if that's okay with you guys.
I'm comfortable with that, Allison.
Okay, that's okay.
Well, what we would do, if we can get those ballots to Allison prior to going in camera, and then Allison can announce the two candidates before we go in camera, and then you can ratify that by resolution tonight.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I'll pass
Thank
the floor to Councillor Bashara, please.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Wonderful. So I have a lot of respect for the work that's been done by both Councillor Gadisky and Councillor Watt. There is a lot of experience that's at that table. Having said that, though, there is a very clear mandate that was brought to the council chambers by the voters of La Ronge that our recycling facility is not meeting the service needs of the community. That is one of my bugaboos, and I really do believe it's time for some fresh eyes on the board to be able to push for some of the broader focus in waste management, not just about a compliant landfill site or a, appropriate trucking. All of that is well underway. And the momentum behind that, that Councillor Watt has put behind that is great. I think in my time, I worked as a policy analyst for government relations, and I worked with the Ministry of Environment on landfill compliance and policy to transition to appropriately engineered landfill sites a number of years ago, which I think this landfill was part of that big push. And I believe that I can bring or push for innovation and provide a service, be able to push for a service that is commensurate with what the town desires. A big region, we can afford to provide a service for recycling to extend the life of that landfill, and I think that is a very big priority that I want to bring to that board. So I'd appreciate your support with being appointed to that board.
Great, thank you. All right, so I guess we just pass these out, right? And then,
Sure.
does this need to be done immediately, or does this need to be collected before the end of the?
How would you like it? You guys can decide how you want to do
Are you
this.
guys all good to go now and make that decision? You guys just to take a minute or so and just decide so we can.
What's on the other, yeah.
I would suggest we carry on with the meeting.
Okay.
And they can hand, those that are in attendance can hand the ballots to Allison. And before we go in camera, those that aren't in attendance, email to Allison directly, and then she'll tabulate that and announce that before we go in camera, right?
Okay,
Just to save time.
Yeah, that's great, perfect. Okay, so let's move on to our delegations this evening. We have the Kekanack Friendship Center, Ron Butoy, which is here. So I'd like to invite Ron to speak. And you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, I guess. It's afternoon.
Yeah.
Before I start on this, I want to congratulate you on your election as the mayor. I do hope you enjoy your term. As you know, I didn't run again. I had enough. And I sure hope that everything goes good for you. And the rest of council, who we all know. Like I said, thank you for running, and I do hope the next 4 years are wonderful for you. Now back to Kekanack. As you know, I'm the director of Kekanack. I've been for 25 years now. Holy crap. Anyway, this is what's happened, and I honestly don't know much on this, but apparently the federal government, our National Association of Friendship Centers made a deal with the federal government to piece off some of the funding that was going to Aboriginal organizations, we don't know who, and Saskatchewan Friendship Centers are getting either, I heard 4 and I heard 6, but I know that La Ronge, Prince Albert, North Battleford and Saskatoon were all getting, if council approves, an 8-unit apartment block for low-income people. And it has to be shovel-ready by the end of March. And I've been told that by Friday I have to have an agreement in place for the land. We have to submit to this place in Regina or Saskatoon what we have in place already. So Prince Albert did theirs 2 nights ago, and the SPA City Council approved some property. They're turning their 8 units into residences for people coming out of prison. We these are all 2-bedroom units, and we just want to do the low-income apartment block for our, people that use Kekanack and or all services in town. We do know that the federal government has hired an engineering firm. We have nothing to do with that. They called me this afternoon wanting to know my timeline. I said I'm meeting tonight, so I'm supposed to let them know by tomorrow. These will be completely wheelchair accessible. I don't know what that means. It will have an elevator because it's 2-story, and they say there's going to be an elevator. Wheelchair accessible. Oh, and also, what's the other word?
Solar.
Pardon?
Solar?
And solar powered in some way. So it's federal government doing it. So my request is to come to council asking for property that could be earmarked for this project. I talked to Robbie, and according to him, there are 2 properties now that are zoned correctly. And there are ones on the, I call it north of Sunrise, directly attached, and one is directly on the south side of Sunrise Apartments. They're all bush. So, I mean, realistically, if this is coming to us for nothing, I guess somebody will be paying for clearing of the bush, and quite frankly, the land is not all the best, so it would have to be filled and everything else. They will not have a basement, I know that. So I guess, you know, that's all I can say. Robbie has told me that the town's value on the property is around $100,000 for either lot. One's a little bigger than the other. And I'm hoping that council approves the one that I call south, nearing Louis Road. First of all, my request is that you approve that. Second, normally within the town, we've always had a policy of 10% down. And I'm asking that you waive that because it will come out of Kickenack if it's not approved. And quite frankly, if it's all approved, we will get the money. And I know what you want for the lot, so we would, you know, I'm putting that in the application tomorrow, the value, and I'm just asking that you approve it, you know, before the end, say March, during the winter. And if the government approves it, it has to be social, it has to be, what's the word for it? Shovel ready by March 31st. So, it's the best I can tell you. It's kind of a nice chance to get, and I have no idea what the value is or anything, but this is the second step. The first one was talking to the engineers today.
So I just have a quick question. I just want to confirm, this is the CMHC
Yes.
Rabbit House? Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to confirm that.
They sent me this package. That's all I have, and you read it, it's CMHC, and
Okay.
I have to fill out a form saying that I was not in government, so I did that today and sent that in. And our mandate also had to include housing, and it always has, so that did it. Any questions, or?
So
Yes, sir.
that particular property wouldn't have a curb stop, so that service would come directly off the main line.
I believe so, yes.
Yes, so that cost, would that be part of the project, or would that be something that the town would expect it to get the service to the property line?
I don't know. I don't know. Well, to tell you the truth, our first request was out on, sorry, this is my stroke, I can't remember names. Where all the other new apartments are,
Robertson Drive.
on Robertson Drive. And then Robbie basically said, yeah, but it's not zoned correctly, and so because of that, and because of the timeline,
I know the north have these fourplexes were built just across the road, along Louis Road. I know they had to run service into those,
right,
and it was pretty intensive, I guess, to get service to it. But this property might be a little bit easier because it's closer to where the service actually runs.
I've been assuming that it would be just as easy or hard as the apartments right now.
Yeah.
You know, because Sunrise is hooked somewhere, and according to Robbie, and I don't know how he knows, that the line just goes directly on the street there. So if that's the truth, it would be okay. If not, yeah, you're right.
I guess the other thing, because Sunrise right now is operating on the pump station, so you would want to get, you know, make sure you knew your elevation so that you could build the land high enough
Right.
that you could get that service to the street without having a lift station.
It would need fill for sure. These, I've been told that these apartments would not have basements at all. That I know.
And that's probably a good reason.
Yeah.
So Ron, you were saying, taking into consideration and adding on what Joe was in conversation with, you're just in the preliminary stages of funding and everything else, so I think it would be highly advisable if that is the case, that you take into consideration those service lines, because I do know that the force main is out on Bedford Street there,
Yes.
along with the water line. But again, you know what I'm saying, it sounds like you're in your prelim stages of this as far as putting together the funding. So again, take into consideration that if we so, you know.
I don't know what, how to explain this. I don't know when this project first came up. I think that we're getting what's left of something. And this all just came together about a week ago or 10 days ago, and suddenly the four friendship centers have a chance to get this. So that we're scrambling, and we were told we had to have this in and the land allocated by Friday. So I'm guessing the government wants it all approved by the end of December. That's why I honestly would have liked to have preferred it on Robertson Drive, because it would have been a lot easier. Just if we need 4 units or 4 lots, then we could remove 3 of the lines that are already there. But so
Just for council's information, we're getting into the details of the project here.
Yeah.
The issue before council is providing the land, yes or no, which you'll be dealing with later on. And the servicing side of that, we can deal with that in-house when we get to that point. So I don't know if we have to debate that tonight.
I think the reason those points were brought up is because those are things you gotta consider between the north and the south parcel. You're looking at, which is going to be more complicated to service and given, so it's just some thought, that's all it is.
Yeah, fair enough.
So is the request at this time just that we're waiving the 10% so that you can continue to move forward with the
Well,
project? Is that a part of, is that the start of that?
basically, yes. Number one, that we allocate a property, we know which one that we're applying for,
Right,
and that you waive the 10%,
okay.
but not forever. It's just we will pay the full value if we get the funding.
Right, and then my follow-up question that this has already been approved, the Friendship Center has already been allocated that money, we're just.
We don't know.
Um,
This all, we read this, we were told a lot of things,
yeah,
and suddenly we read that Prince Albert announced that they're getting this and putting it up.
right.
And so the questions we're having is, did they know about this, or did they jump the gun and announce something that, the federal government wants to
So
do?
does everything has to be in place before the end of the year, right? So that the
Yes.
application can go through, okay.
Yeah,
Any
it's
other-
not before the end of December,
Yeah,
so that it's all in place and shovel ready by the end of fiscal year, March.
got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Any other questions? Anybody on
I have a
scheduling?
question for Dean. In regards to the waiving of the 10%, would it not be administratively easier to, rather than waive some land and actually have it landlocked to a certain person or nonprofit, that we would look into the consideration of just having it in the contract language that the deposit of 10% will be refunded on the event that the grant application is not approved?
Yeah, if council's in favor of providing the property, we would certainly suggest that it be subject to funding approval, and because if the funding isn't there, the deal's dead anyway, right? So I think we can deal with that moving forward in the offer to purchase part of this thing.
Except that what I was told was anything that is spent prior to a contract or anything that is not in the contract, we have to eat. So that's the big one. If we have to put up 10,000, even if the project was approved in the end, then we would lose that 10,000 because you would keep it toward the value of the land, and we would not get our money back because we paid it before the contract was signed. It's a
I think
catch-22.
if we get to that point
Yeah.
in the discussion, we'll work with Ron to sort that out. That's a grant application issue, and it's more a matter if council's agreeable to waive the 10% upfront, and that's a council decision. And if that's the case, we'll work that through the grant process. If this is the direction council wants to go with Ron, they'll be filling it out, but I've seen the form just because we had to look at the Rapid Housing Initiative as well, so I'm not totally familiar with it, but I've seen it, but we'll advise Ron, I guess, what we need to do to comply with the requirements, if that's council's decision.
Okay. No, I thank you for coming through with this, because this was something that was on my radar, and I think it's now a great opportunity for us. So thank you for taking that upon yourself to do that, because it's something that we need. So thank you. Is there anything else from anybody?
No, I think it's a great project, and we'll see where it goes.
It's not big enough, but they're only improving. I mean,
But it's something.
I actually asked them if we paid the difference,
Yeah.
could we do a 12 or 16?
Uh-huh.
And they said no. They don't have a problem with it on the same property, but it better be in a separate building. Whoa. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
We appreciate it. And thank you for your service, Ron, for the last 4 years. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for that. I honestly wish I had never ran.
Well, we're glad that you did.
No. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have to do anything, right? Okay, perfect. All right, let's move on to the next delegation. We have Andre Collins on the Community Safety and Wellbeing. So we will give you the floor. Have a great evening, Ron.
Thanks for coming in.
See you.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I did supply
Right to the podium, yeah.
Sure, I did supply a PowerPoint as well. Allison, I don't know if we have access to that or.
I believe they should have access to that electronic. I think I included that in their notes there.
Wonderful, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Here.
So we're all looking at the same thing? Yeah, okay, cool. Maybe the best way to do this is that I'll just, as I move through it, I can just next us and we can all move along together. Thank you for having me tonight. Good to see everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Andrea Cowan. I'm a Community Program Manager with Community Safety and Wellbeing. Community Safety and Wellbeing, or CSWB, is a branch of the Ministry of Integrated Justice Services. And I just wanted to use our time today to kind of give a bit of an overview of the workings of the branch, some updates on behalf of the Lac La Ronge Region Community Alcohol Management Plan, and then discuss some kind of opportunities moving forward. So just in the interest of time, if it's okay with the group, I'll kind of move through some of these updates in the PowerPoint and then save any questions or that kind of discussion for afterwards, if that works for the gang. Cool. So on to our next slide. This just kind of shows, it's just to give an overview of the branch as its whole and its mandate. So, you know, recognizing the importance of incident response and really kind of working to move towards those outer layers that you see in that circle, towards risk intervention and prevention strategies when it comes to safety and well-being. And doing so by using these 3 triangles that you see, measuring success, information sharing, and collaboration. So really kind of engaging stakeholders around collaborative planning and working to provide communities and at a regional level data that informs safety and well-being planning, and data that we can use to measure our successes as we engage in that type of planning. So on to our next slide, where you kind of see a map of Saskatchewan, and it just shows some of the services that the wider branch offers. So our branch works with community-based organizations and administers funding to transition houses, sexual assault services, victim witness and victim service programs. All of that kind of falls within the realm of the community safety and well-being branch. A little more specifically with our La Ronge office, we work both here in La Ronge as well as in other northern communities to kind of assess assets and gaps and provide community leadership with relevant data to inform planning. You'll see on this map as well the hub table listed, so part of our branch is to support the hub tables in communities, and I understand that Ali had a chance, our current hub coordinator, to come and present to council, I think, at your last meeting. So I'll move us into our next slide, which just shows the kind of camp outline. So that is the Community Alcohol Management Plan. A kind of multi-sectoral group that includes representation within the Lac La Ronge region from the RCMP, the Saskatchewan Health Authority, Band Health, both on and off reserve education, Northlands College, really just as many players as we can include in that collaborative planning, and really taking kind of a multi-pronged approach to address alcohol-related harms. So that could look like bylaws, it looks like supporting alcohol-free community events. That group worked really hard in support of the Lac La Ronge Indian Band Wellness Center and works closely with Churchill's Students Against Drunk Driving group. Another kind of facet of that camp table is really recognizing alcohol use as a spectrum and acknowledging that when we look at, from abstinence to real alcohol use disorder, most of our funding, most of our interventions, and most of our resources are really heavily funneled into that, addictions or use disorder side of the spectrum. And most of the harms that we see coming from alcohol tend to fall in that midpoint, that binge drinking or more that moderate but excessive use of alcohol. So that's kind of part of the camp, that's an overview of the camp committee. On the next slide that I've provided, it just kind of gives an overview of the partners there and acknowledges, so it was in July of 2016 that locally our three governments, the band, the village, and the town came together to endorse a 5-year plan for the camp committee. And moving into our next slide, we've got some kind of outcome data, some data around the camp committee. Some of you may have seen this before. For anyone who's new to the table, this is just a way of update on behalf of the camp committee. We see the Lac La Ronge Region RCMP alcohol involved calls for service. This is tracked 2016 to 2018. And despite some fluxes in that graph, what we see on that red trend line is an overall decrease in specifically alcohol-related or alcohol-involved calls for service. The next slide that we have highlights the impacts of alcohol on the La Ronge ER. And this is a comparison slide comparing November of 2017 to March of 2019, and this was working with Population Health to track alcohol-related visits to the ER for those over the age of 16. And what we see when we compare those is an overall decrease of 3% for males, 4% for females. We do have the same data collection did exist in this past March of 2020. Obviously, March of 2020 looked really different in the ER here. So what public health did was kind of take the first 2 weeks of March where things were a little more normal and extrapolate that out for the wider month of March. And a similar decrease is shown in March of 2020 for the ER visits. The next slide just provides a little bit more detail on those decreases and the specifically between the ages of 16 and 24 is the largest decrease in alcohol-related ER visits. And to put that decrease into perspective, those 19 fewer visits to the emergency room alcohol-related per month, that would equate to 228 fewer visits to the emergency room for the full year. So, recognizing that when we work to prevent alcohol-related harms in the community, we need a lot of strain on our existing systems. I'll move us along. So the next kind of set of slides are data that came from the camp survey. So yearly the camp committee puts a survey out to the community to ensure that kind of community voice continues to be captured in the work. And so our next few slides just kind of show some data around that. We have, do you believe there are problems with alcohol in the community? Showing a relatively steady perception of alcohol problems in the community. Incidents of alcohol in the community, this is showing specifically the increasing. The way that question was asked was, are they increasing, decreasing, staying the same? Our next slide, should taxis be required to service as late as the bars stay open? See, these are respondents that answered yes to that question. I know at our last camp committee meeting at the beginning of December, this was a topic of discussion as well. Thank you both, Mayor Tushiak and Councillor Ruse Arcand, for attending and for sending some further information around business licenses. I think there is an opportunity to address this as a concern if Mayor and Council are interested, and I think I'd like to follow up with the CAO on how we could address that in the future for a future discussion. This next slide shows support for a managed alcohol program or a wet house in the community. For a bit of context, a managed alcohol program is an intervention for that really far end of the alcohol use spectrum for chronic alcohol use disorder, where alcohol is prescribed by a physician to ensure people aren't going into withdrawal, to steer away from the use of non-beverage alcohol, and to really work with people's kind of goals around their alcohol consumption. Usually that's a residential model. We see that in the Lighthouse in Saskatoon has a managed alcohol program, so does Homeward Bound in Prince Albert. So I just included this one in the slide deck to kind of show that public support of the concept, and I would assume this to be kind of province-wide, public support of managed alcohol programs seems to be increasing as well. So, moving on, this is our last slide, this kind of collective impact slide. And I think that the currently existing Alcohol Management Planning Committee shows a real kind of demonstration of this collective impact, the collaborative work that's being done at the table, as well as the really strong use of data to support both the planning and the direction of that table. Stepping out from, I guess, the alcohol-specific lens and kind of moving more broadly into the conversation towards that wider community safety and well-being planning. There was an offer made to, I believe, previous mayor and council that I'd like to revisit from our branch, from Community Safety and Well-being, for regional planning. Our branch is willing to support a facilitator who could work with the tri-communities, band, village, and town on some wider safety and well-being planning under the thought that kind of finding areas of collaboration to work together would strengthen our overall safety and well-being approach within the tri-community. So part of why I'm here today is to gauge if that's of interest to the town, to engage in that type of safety and well-being planning as a tri-community, and if so, I would work with the CAO and of band, town, and village to create a letter of request for that. It would look like approximately $30,000 of funding towards a facilitator. And note for your discussion as well that I had the opportunity to make a similar offer to the village at their last meeting, and they were enthusiastic and have already agreed to engage in that type of planning as well. And I think I'm done now.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do have one. In light of our most recent vandalism and horrific break-in entries, does Hub have any influence or any opportunity to speak? Because I talked in depth with our local law enforcement today, and they struggle because of that revolving door down the, I see a lot of footnotes here to identify with justice. My question, does Hub have any influence of getting to the provincial judicial system and dealing with that revolving door. And these young individuals that now are of age and continue to wreak havoc and scare the bejesus out of the residents of Orono. So again, Andrea, I appreciate you showing up. And again, my question being, do you guys have any influence within the health organization of collectively, collaboratively speaking with Jessica?
So the intent of the hub model is to mobilize existing resources in a way that would ideally ensure that that kind of revolving door is stopped, right? To mobilize existing resources in a way that ensures that kind of again interagency case planning around an individual. Whether I can't speak to whether or not the individuals that you're mentioning in this incident were hub referrals at any point, were brought to the hub table at any point. The hub table relies on frontline staff to make referrals for individuals or families that they see as being elevated risk that could use kind of that multi-agency approach. I do think that when it comes to issues like what you're mentioning, they're not isolated, they're part of a wider trend. And I do think that there's the potential for this type of safety and well-being planning when it's done collaboratively within the region to start recognizing some of those trends and creating locally led plans or initiatives or interventions around vandalism, break-and enters, and what you're referring to.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So these wood houses, they're just to allow people to continue doing what they're doing, is that what it is? Or, I don't see anything in here about places for people to dry out. Is there any effort to maybe look at that? Because I mean, if you're an alcoholic, you keep using alcohol, you're going to continue to be an alcoholic. But there has been some success rates in dry-out centers if they have, but they need that support for a longer period of time. There's a lot of places you can only go in 30 days and then they put you out and then there's nothing long term. So,
Yeah, good question, and I would just highlight that it certainly wouldn't be the intention of and I'm not necessarily suggesting that a managed alcohol program is the right solution, but there's no intention for a managed alcohol program to replace detox and models that work towards abstinence or sobriety, right? A managed alcohol program is really geared towards a subset of population with alcohol use disorder who have tried detox and for who abstinence isn't an option. These are really that subset of kind of really chronic alcohol users who, if provided with a moderate, consistent amount of alcohol, tend to have much better health outcomes, tend to engage in less illegal activity in order to get the funding that they may spend on alcohol. And really what the research is showing for a lot of these managed alcohol programs is that when someone enters into it, their alcohol use does tend to taper, although there are some people for whom that alcohol use would stay consistent and their prescription for alcohol would reflect that. And again, it's really kind of recognizing that that still reduces harms for an individual who is a chronic heavy alcohol user.
yeah, I'm just curious about how it would work.
Yeah, thanks. And the programs, the existing programs tend to be residential, so that person would be, in a shelter setting. That person would have just like any other medication, would have alcohol prescribed on a 2 or 3 times a day basis.
So, sorry, the facilitator, so the money that you're asking for to put into place here, Ally, she's not the facilitator, right? She's the coordinator position, is that what that is?
Yeah,
And then
so
this is an additional position that would be put in place, and what does that position do, and what is, if you can just for me, just so I understand exactly what that person would be doing.
yeah, good question, and maybe I'll just clarify that, so Ally is the coordinator for the hub, and the hub as a program being separate from this facilitator that we're discussing today. The facilitator, this is less so a new position in the community and more so that our branch would be willing to support the cost of a facilitator coming in or from the community, who could, sit down with leadership between Band Village and town and really identify some priorities when it's on the topic of safety and well-being, and help the tri-community as a region to actionize some of their regional planning. So this doesn't imply that all 3 communities wouldn't also have their own safety and well-being mandates or plans, but to be able to have a facilitator or a third party, or I guess in this case a fourth party, who can assist with finding where the regional or where the community plans might intersect, and where resource sharing and kind of goal setting might be better collaboratively. Does that answer your question?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, so it would be more like a contractor than a position.
Okay.
It's separate from the hub. It would be a contractor who's coming in and working with leadership to kind of identify those goals and do some kind of action planning.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions? Anybody? Ryan, Abby, Jordan?
I heard everything and I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Correspondence is nothing yet. Okay, so moving on to number 6, the committee reports. We're going to 6.1. So, Dean, I guess this is you.
Yeah, we filed both reports. If there's any questions from council, we'd be happy to answer them.
I have 2.
Go ahead, Abby.
First is in the finance, or in the projects report. Finance project number 13. I'm wondering if it's something that council can help with.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question, sorry.
My SaskTel internet is really acting up for me lately. So, I apologize. Finance project number 13. Is there anything council can help with?
Can you just identify the project name, please, Abby?
It's staff morale, I think.
Yeah, I really don't have a comment right now on that, no.
Okay. Second question was in the bylaw project report, number 3. I believe it's about that quick serve restaurant. I'm wondering if that's the plan that we're reviewing later in the meeting?
That's correct, yeah, the surface lace, yeah.
Okay, I will save my questions for when we discuss that.
All right.
Hey, Allison,
Mm-hmm.
just from a point of order, I guess the only thing that I would say in regards to the difficulty hearing is I think the TV's volume is just a little too loud. We're gonna get some feedback through the mic on the desk.
Okay, I can turn it down a little bit if that helps. Turn the microphone down on the desk. Yeah, we can turn that down. Yep.
Testing. That you do?
We can turn it down a little further if necessary, just let us know.
That sounds good.
Just for Councillor Bashir, on your first question, I'd be happy to talk to you about that in a different forum.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, all right. I'm not trying to elude it, but I don't think it's appropriate to discuss it here.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion, questions? So we need a motion, right?
Except for what's that?
Anybody willing to motion for that?
I'll move to accept the reports as presented by CAO.
Do we have a secondary?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, carried. Let's move forward to number 7. Budgetary control report, 7.1.
We can pretty much do.
I guess I can do all of them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
there's.
if there's any questions pertaining to any of those
Okay,
items?
so, yeah, so the budgetary control report, check registry, and bank reconciliation. I guess if there's any questions, I mean, I guess that's not the right thing, right? We have to motion it first, correct? Before we even, if there's questions or anything? Technically, in technicality, is that right?
Yeah, we can accept all 4 reports if there's no questions from council, if that's what you mean.
Okay, do we have a motion?
There's just some things, but I think they're just more of a timing issue in terms of revenue coming in. But I don't think, as long as there's no red flags that are brought to our attention, I'm prepared to move the acceptance of that.
Yeah, no, there's nothing from our point of view in the income statement or the check register or the bank recs. It's, we're comfortable with presenting it as is. There's no issues at all from us.
Did you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All good. Okay, do we have a motion on the floor then? I can do it.
Just to accept the reports, yeah.
Yep. Someone's got it.
I'll second it. Oh,
You have to give the motion because I can't do it.
okay, I'll move to accept the budgetary control reports as presented.
I'll second that motion.
I just had to go.
What are these raindrops that keep hearing?
It's the Skype, I think it's
chatting.
It is a bit distracting.
Oh, it's a chat.
Okay, all in favor of, there's only the.
3 reports, the budgetary control, the checklist.
That's not what was, motioned, so.
It was
Yes,
the
we're doing this.
budgetary control. We want to do them all together?
I think that would be
Okay.
easier if you don't mind.
So I'd like to move that the budgetary control report, the reserve status, the check registry, and the bank reconciliation be accepted as presented.
Good,
Are you
second.
doing all the financial stuff? I've got an interesting 17244. That's an interesting one.
7224,
17244.
and the budgetary control?
Dean and Larry, do you want to just maybe comment on declaring conflict on checks? If that's required or not?
Yeah, they've already been paid, so there's no conflict.
That's right. Well, I just want to be sure.
Yeah. no, no,
That used to be the practice, I think, and
You didn't influence it until we got the invoice, we paid it, it had nothing to do with this, so I don't think you're in conflict.
Okay.
Was that the only issue, Joe? Or do you have other concerns?
No.
Okay.
It's going to-
Okay, so the motion is on the table. Did we get a seconder for that?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 okay.
All opposed? Okay, motion's carried. Right into bylaws, okay, perfect. 9.1, first reading for the issue to consider first and second reading for council code of ethics bylaws as presented. Dean.
So just a little bit of background, I think that for council is that, first of all, the previous council did not have a code of ethics bylaw. It is a requirement of the act, and if you don't pass the bylaw, then you fall under the Northern Municipalities Act, which we did. So as a result of that, we did prepare a code of conduct for council to consider tonight. As council notes, ethics and integrity are certainly at the core of public confidence in government and in the political process. And there is an expectation that elected members are to perform their duties in a manner that is proper and not to simply negatively use their position for their own benefit. So what we've done is that we've got a bylaw that we think is respectful to council and to the role of elected members. And likely the biggest difference in this is that versus other bylaws that in our research that we reviewed, we feel that there should be an outside third party that investigates any complaints regarding a code of conduct. So if you look at the bylaw before you tonight, we refer to that position as being the integrity commissioner. And we're suggesting that it does become legal counsel. In a lot of cases, it's not just frivolous matters that are dealt with by council on points of order or other. It could be more serious related matters, and we feel that if council is going to take its conduct seriously, that it should be reviewed or investigated by an independent third party, which we believe should be legal counsel. Other than that, I think it's fairly straightforward in terms of content. The integrity commissioner would be not appointed by council, it would be appointed by the CAO because it would be more independent. That way no member of council is influencing the decision to do that, is what this document before you suggests. There are some key principles that are identified within the document that I think you've read. It speaks to honesty, receiving of gifts and benefits, reimbursable expenses, charities, confidential information, ensuring that it remains confidential, using your position to use municipal staff for your own benefit is covered off. We've included a section on election campaigns and proper conduct of city members of council when there's actually election called. Improper use of influence, business relations. Certainly one I think that most people would see is conduct at meetings. Those tend to be obvious ones for council. Media communications, and a section that we added was use of social media. Some members of council certainly more active than others on social media. And it is important, we believe, to have a clear distance between your own personal platforms to express views and that of the town of Lamont, which it's distinctly different. And tried to outline and capture what we feel that should be considered in relation to that. Respectful workplaces is another part of this, and conduct respecting your staff, employment of relatives, reprisals of obstruction, and so on. So we've also in the bylaw outlined how a complaint would be registered, whether it's informal, and it would be judged whether it's formal, informal, or frivolous. And in some cases, the intent of the integrity commissioner is to waste their time on a personality conflict. It's matters of real conflict. So there is an investigation process, and that part of that is that a report would be filed by the integrity commissioner based on the nature of the complaint within a prescribed period of time, and they could recommend corrective action as well. So the report will be presented to the CAO, who again is impartial, and then that report will be presented at the next meeting of council after the report's received. And from that point, council does have a remedial action that's identified in section 32 of your bylaw that you could consider, or it could be a recommendation from the integrity commissioner as well. So we recognize and respect that there's a lot to absorb here. We certainly don't expect you to give it 3 readings tonight, but we wanted to get it introduced and get possibly a second reading if you're comfortable, and be prepared at your January 12th committee of the whole meeting to get into this in more detail if required. So I'll leave it at that and open up to any questions once we get a motion on the floor to accept for first reading, first and second reading.
Okay, so do we have a motion on the table? Because then we can discuss if we need to. Correct?
I'll 641/20.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Will be recorded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 No one like-
Okay.
Okay,
At
all
any,
opposed?
at any point before the final reading, like, you know, when you go through it, and maybe you go through it the second time, you pick up on something that you suggest maybe a change or something that you want to bring up, as long as it's done before final reading, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. And I think that the intent here is hopefully to get second reading tonight, and then you'll have, the purpose, as you know, of your committee to hold is to have an open dialogue with council on what you like and don't like, and it's your bylaw, you need to live with it, so you need to be comfortable with the content. So that would be a more appropriate time to get right into it rather than tonight.
Okay.
But we can answer any general questions if council so wishes.
Okay, we'll do the second reading.
Okay. Yeah, is that, sorry.
No, that's okay, it
That was,
just takes a few extra clicks, so.
So then we just need a motion again for the second one, and then we can open up the discussion, is that? Okay,
Yeah, need a seconder.
okay, so is there any motion for,
I think we'll motion, I will second it.
did you motion the second reading?
Yeah.
Okay, and we just need a seconder? Okay, is there any discussion or questions? Before we go to questions? No, okay, so I'll call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
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 So that's unanimous. And carried. Okay, so we'll go to new business. 10.1, Suncorp land appraisal. We will take, this just comes up. The internet is really, really not happy with me these days. Anybody else feel that recently? It's like at home, it's like,
I'll make it.
might even come up.
I didn't read all 179 pages.
190.
Oh,
Well,
194.
It's actually
Digest
one
it.
12 when you print it out.
But with councils, I'll just hit the high points here, because you're right, there is a lot of information to absorb. However, I think that the concept here is that we required, and this, to ensure that we understand cost and values in relation to the marketplace. Former council did authorize us to proceed to engage Suncorp to do this, and their report, if you read the executive summary, it identifies the process that they undertook in order to determine what they felt was fair market value. And again, I know I've heard it at the table here before that, you know, council should be referring to the SAMA assessment values. And what we did is, for your information, is that we pulled out just randomly elements out of the actual report that Suncorp did an appraisal, and show you the difference based on the most recent SAMA assessment that we had. And obviously the SAMA data is dated from the, it's already old. This is probably more current. So we're not suggesting one's right, one's wrong. We're suggesting that you can't hang your hat on one element of it. And we think that fair market value is likely more relevant to future sales. So this did take into consideration residential and industrial and commercial properties in totality that we had. And so for the purposes of tonight, we're not expecting you to fully read and debate whether one is right and one is wrong. We believe that we engaged a professional appraisal company to provide us that, and that's the context for receiving the information. We're asking council's consideration tonight to accept the report as presented, because this will go hand in hand with the discussion that you're going to be having with respect to disposal of municipal land that council instructed us to develop a policy on that. We are just nicely finishing it up, and this will make more sense when taken in context with this. So we're asking you to receive it for what it is as information tonight, that we will look at more closely when we look at your disposition of municipal land policy.
I do have a question around a parcel 3 acres, concluded per acre value, not applicable, and it's appraised at $1, whereas all the other properties in Morange range from $2,800 all the way into the $140-some thousand. That just caught my eye. I'm just curious about that.
We can check into that with the, Allison, if you just want to make a note, we'll check with Suncorp on that particular property, okay?
Dean, I have a question for you. Lot of information. Anyway, in regards to raw land, okay, how do they, or maybe it's within this document, but how do they come up with a value on unsuitable for development raw land?
Well, it's difficult, to say the least. So it is partially based on existing sales and market value. I don't have the exact answer.
Can I give you a scenario to digest?
Sure.
In the topography of some of the northern shielded land within the boundaries of Orange, when you're talking of a severe esker to the tune of 40 to 60% grade, that to me is unsuitable for development type of topography. So that's a question I would like answered by Suncor is, how do you put a value on that? Per square foot.
Yeah, we can certainly ask them that. Here's the other side of that equation is that, as you know, there are, and they did have a look and inspected the property, so it's not like they don't understand totally the Laurent landscape, and that was one of the reasons why this company was selected.
Yeah, I know.
So it's not, they're not from southern Saskatchewan. I have no idea of property and contour and those type of things. But having said that, is that even though there's an appraisal, and this will speak more into your disposition of municipal land moving forward, part of the conversation of council is that, and the Northern Municipalities Act supports this, is that even though you may have something appraised, and it sits and sits and sits and is still appraised, a city council is of a better view to gauge fair market value somewhat. So there is discretion, it's not a science by any means, but it does allow for discretion for a city council to determine fair market value in relation to the market. So as an example, when we get into undeveloped properties and you establish, let's just pick a number, whatever number the council establishes, that'll be the basis kind of going forward. And in time, let's just assume in 8 years that there's no offers on that specific piece of property, and a council engages an offer, then council could be in a position at that time to determine fair market value is what someone has offered us for, to us for, because we're gauging the marketplace locally, which you have the right to do in accordance to tax. So I know it's a roundabout way of saying what I did to you, Councilor Watt, but you know it's not a science. And this is a better guideline than not having an appraisal. And there are going to be specific situations where it's going to be challenging to determine that, and that's why each individual sale will come to council for you to make a decision on one way or the other, which that'll be your protection.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, you know, the land itself, sometimes it's a little bit more challenging, as Hugh has mentioned, but what has to be taken into account is the investment the community has made to put a road, put the infrastructure in front of that property. Some of it's got water and sewer in front of it, some of it's got natural gas in front of it, some got power. And everything on either side of that property has got value based on the infrastructure that's put in place. So to say that land is worthless, it would have been a very poor investment on the community. Obviously, someone thought that there's something could be built on, and look at the number of properties that are in the investment area that that have been built up. It's more costly than down south because of the amount of fill, but there's still a base value to every property that's alongside that road. And that's something we have to keep in mind.
There's a lot of moving parts when you're looking at valuing property, and you're right, you know, in considering real service that are applied and who paid for, again, those are current city council's decisions to make on what value you pay, whether a developer pays for cost of, so those are all relevant, but each situation is going to be different and may be unique, so we can't generalize here either.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, Dean. Is this, sorry, I'm just seeing it, I just said in the message here. Is this for compliance, or is this just for information, so that if and when someone comes to us, then we have that information to present to them as far as value?
Well, both. I mean, part of it is that, you know, it's a good practice to have a third party give you a value on it that's not necessarily assessed value, so that makes some sense. But as I said earlier, this tied together with your disposal of land policy will kind of wrap it all up, and then moving forward, it'll give you the basis to dispose of land on. So it's the beginning of 2 steps.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I think that's, I think we need to move forward. This is for information purposes, so let's move forward and get a motion on the table to resolve it.
I'll make a motion to accept the Suncor Fund Appraisal Issue Report as presented.
Do we have a second?
And I'll second.
Okay, any just further discussion or question for the question? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, carried. Let's move on to 10.2. Amended sales agreement. Dean.
This is just a housekeeping matter. We have a sale that has been in place, and we just need to make a friendly amendment to it, and we couldn't sign off on it. So we'd like council's support in just approving the amendment as presented.
Just to add to that, I did speak with the individual today. He did provide me an update. All of the conditions that they were supposed to meet have been met. Aside from that, in terms of getting a check prepared for the last initial payment, he did say because of year-end, you know, holidays, all that wonderful stuff are kind of at that time of year. They might be a few days late to getting that final payment, but aside from that, everything was good from their end. So if council was okay to extend it like a day or two, or willing to overlook that, then that would be the only thing. And that just came up today, so, but nothing.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about getting a check from South Strong Corp.
No, I wasn't either, but I thought I'd bring it up, so.
I'm prepared to move that council approves to amending the sales agreement between the town of La Ronge and SHC dated October 29th, 2020 as presented, and further that the mayor and acting chief administrative officer be authorized to sign the amended agreement.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll move to question. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, carried. 10.3, the Alice Robertson Public Library. Allison.
Basically the library comes forward, they have their, just board appointments that expire, and I believe that they require the town's approval in renewing the board appointments for another term for some individuals. So they have 3 individuals that have their term. One obviously is our new councillor, and then 2 other members that have their board membership has lapsed. So just to renew those, basically, and to also to accept the list of all of the current members.
It's just a formality for council.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we have a motion on the table?
Also,
Richard, seconded.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain because my name's on there.
Okay. And all opposed say nay. All right.
There's no harm in you agreeing that you be on that board.
Okay,
Fire
let's
chief.
move on to 10.4.
We'll get our fire chief or acting fire chief to overview his report to council.
Our fire chief is on the way.
Go to the podium, Keith.
Yeah.
Sorry, my internet is very slow here on this.
Me too.
Let's wait for this thing to load. So basically, this is the SPSA fire dispatch contract that just needs to be signed off by the municipality. If you guys read the issue report, it's done annually. The previous agreement was with CanOps, which no longer exists when the government amalgamated. So with the name change, they have to, we have to re-sign the agreement in the new name. So yeah, basically, if there's any questions, I can try to answer them for you. So basically tonight, we're recommending that the council approves the signing of the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency fire dispatch contract as presented, and authorize the acting chief administrator to sign said agreement on behalf of the town.
I'd like to move that Town of Orange Mayor and Council approve the signing of the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency fire dispatch contract as presented by Acting Fire Chief Cloud, and authorize the Acting Chief Administrative Officer to sign said agreement on behalf of the town.
I'll second that.
Just a quick point of interest here. I'm not sure who can answer it, but anyone can chime in. Has the municipality in past practice had to pay for this contract?
Correct, yeah, this is actually, they send out annual fees, an invoice, that we must pay to be on the network. So this invoice that they sent is what we get every year. What's different this year is this renewing of the contract agreement.
Is there any major changes between other than that that you've noted?
I haven't noticed anything in there, just mainly their name.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I'll second.
Or any further discussion? All right, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, motion is carried.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Keith.
Yep.
Okay, motion 5 is Pat here?
Not that I'm aware of, I believe she was off today, she was not feeling, she was a little under the weather, so.
Is Larry gonna speak on this behalf?
Yeah, Larry can speak to it, yeah.
Okay. Larry, you have the floor.
Okay, we're just asking council to approve our proposed budget timelines for 2021. If you notice in your issue report, we, in attachment A, we started with when we see or we proposed that the final operating and capital budgets be approved for 2021, that being March 23rd, if all goes well. And it's primarily because it's later than what we would usually like to see, but with the election and the council, that kind of stuff, to be back a month is not so bad. But we are, if you'll notice, looking at probably getting council capital budget approval in February, prior to the March, just to give staff a chance to get the tender process and RFP processes going in a timely manner. And then we will also be looking for a little bit later for council to set their review meeting dates for the 2021 budget. And we'll be looking at those February 23rd. We hope to have the operating and capital administrative budgets ready for that meeting and to set meetings to get into it, right into the detail.
So for council, that means that there would be separate budget meetings that we would establish with council that are outside of council meetings. So it wouldn't be a part of your regular agenda, there'd be a separate meeting, and we'd allocate 3, 4, 5 hours and we'd get into it hard by section as an example to get through kind of the first wave. So we present you the information and kind of go from there. So just to be clear, it's outside of your regular council meetings as well.
So the managers have already submitted their budgets, and those are all done? That's what I'm seeing here?
They're working on those budgets as we speak. And we're hoping to get fees and charges to you sort of in January for your approval. And they started compiling their operating budgets. Have their, for the most part, good chunk of the capital stuff that they believe that we need in place. There's still some review at the director level that needs to occur there. With the new director of operations in place, we're also sort of rejigging a little bit of the process so the managers have, go through SAGAR first, and then SAGAR will meet with Pat and Finance and do the populating and make it correct. And on the capital stuff, then it's also figuring out what package of money that we're going to use to actually cover the capital costs, whether it's a reserve or some of the capital grants that you have, or whether it's celebrating. So council will also be asked to propose or suggest what they would need to see include capital budget, so we can include that in the next moving forward to get things right out.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Okay, do we have a motion on the table?
Yeah, I'd like to move that Town of Orange Mayor and Council approve the proposed timelines for the development and approval of the 2021 capital and operating budgets.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, well, the question, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. All right, motion is carried. 10.7, sorry, not 10.7, pardon me. 10.6, the NAR agreement renewal. Allison?
Yeah, so I believe I sent you the contract earlier, but just basically our current contract expires at the end of this month, and council's interested in renewing it with them. I did speak with them, and they are content to continue on offering these services with us. Yeah, that's
Okay, one question I've got. Are you asking a question or are you going to make a motion?
I was going to make a question. No, make a question.
No, I didn't know we were
ask
going to
the
make a motion
question.
already. I just-
No, I have a question. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Has there been any thought about, I know right now that the town does all the licensing, and all the profits, or all the money that's taken in on impound fees are all returned to the town. Would there be any incentive on the organization to maybe receive half of that, and maybe they could, I know there's a lot of animals out there that are not licensed, and I was going to ask you the numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's fairly low. And maybe there'd be an incentive on their part to maybe get more animal license, because really they should be under our bylaw. And I just throwing it out there whether that could be
I do know when NAR does pick up an animal, they do, especially if it is a town of La Ronge, animal, they do get them licensed, and then they return those beasts back to us. So I mean, they're assisting in that aspect. As far as, the rest of your question there, I guess that's up to, for council's consideration and decision, maybe something to consider for the 2021 budget, but that's kind of.
I would suggest this though, council, is that part of the responsibility is with the citizens that own animals to ensure that they're licensed as well. Like some of this is an education piece, and like we're obliged to provide and house, and this is the mechanism that we're doing with. We can't force people to necessarily buy licenses unless we catch the animal and so on. So it's kind of chicken and egg. And part of it for us administratively, I think, is requesting not just NAR but also the public at large to ensure that they license their animals so that they do comply with the bylaws that are in place. And that seems to be as big an issue as some of the other matters that we deal with this particular situation.
I have a question, sorry, did you?
Yeah, I did. I was just reading through the contract, and just based on some concerns brought forth by citizens, I am wondering, what is our role in ensuring that the terms laid out in the contract are met? And at what point do we intervene, or is that something we would refer directly to the CAO?
Yeah, well, the contract, I think, is it's on an as required basis, so we don't actively monitor it. We do take, if we're get any type of a concern on service tractor or complaint, we contact the organization directly, and if we have, if issues are brought to our attention, we speak directly to the organization. Is how we've been handling it.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I just have a question about these financial implications. It says that they're requesting funds for some renovations. Is there a cap on that, or what are they asking for?
They just, they said they're willing to renew their contract. They said they are hoping to make some repairs to the kennels in 2021, and if, council was willing to contribute, great, and if not, that's fine too, but, it's just kind of an open-ended, consideration for 2021 budgets. So.
Something just to be on the radar.
Just something.
Well,
on
our position would be if they wanted something from the town, they'd have to make an ask.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to provide, here's some cash, do something with it. We need something in writing, and then council, as part of your budget process, would react whether you're comfortable contributing or not.
Okay. That's it.
Could I ask a quick question too?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had this La Ronge resident come to me about this cat issue he's been having in his neighborhood, where this cat keeps coming back and spraying on his property. And they finally gave him a trap and they caught him. And then when he took it to him, they just released it in the backyard and then it went out again. Is there something else they should have done there, or this cats aren't going to stay in the backyard?
Well, no, and I mean, frankly, in some cases, some complaints we get are actually civil matters between neighbors because they don't like somebody's dog barking, and we kind of take the position that we don't get involved in matters that are civil in nature, and if the animal's out running, we'll follow the bylaw and our agreement, but we don't get in the middle of those type of matters at all.
How come cats don't have to be licensed and dogs do?
I'm pretty sure in the bylaw they do. Do they not?
No.
No, cats do not.
They do not.
Oh. But I know
looked
there's
it
a
up.
limit of 3 cats per household. That
Yes,
I know.
there are limits on how many cats and how many dogs per household.
Mhm.
And again, this is a bylaw that is either on a complaint basis and is, what people are less likely to comply with, and it's certainly nothing that we would spend a lot of time enforcing, again, unless it's on a complaint basis.
I do have a comment. First off, the feedback in the room is still very, quite a bit. if the mic can be turned down a bit.
I don't know, is everybody experiencing that, or is it just Abby, or what? How are you receiving this, Dean?
It comes and goes for me, to be honest with you.
Like, you can shut it right off.
It's okay right there.
Every time someone's on the call speaking, the EA, indicator for somebody talking there comes on.
Turn it down a little bit more, I don't know how much further we can go, but.
It does tend to echo lots, I find.
Okay.
Yeah. So just the comment that I have has to do with NAR and our chem facilities and how it's lacking, and just anticipating that in our budget process for this coming year, that we should also look to invest a little bit in our kenneling facilities, because we have a lot of animals going through, and we don't even have a facility that has outside access for the animals.
I would agree with Councillor Bashara, because at times the NAR compound is full, and at times they cannot no longer take in any animals because they are full.
I think
Just on a point of order, can we put that towards the budgetary chats on, I guess, the early year? Just seeing as the issue report here currently is strictly related to the agreement between the NAR and the Animal Rescue and Town of Orange.
Alright, so let's move it along. Is there a motion on the table?
I will move to accept the NAR contract agreement as presented for meal regarding the agreement for, let me reword that whole motion, okay. I would like to move that we renew the NAR agreement for services regarding animal control enforcement officer services within the town of Orange.
Being seconded?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Alright, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I will say this to council, what we will do based on the feedback we got on the facility, we will have a discussion with NAR about facility improvement and do our best to work with them to see if we can, they can come up with a number that can be included as part of your budget discussion, okay?
Sorry.
Part of the challenge with providing outside access to all the paneling, inside panel in that building is got asbestos in it, and so to try and cut it, I think that's what the challenge is. So that facility isn't really the best site for that, but it's the only one we got right now.
I think we can reserve that for budget stuff to talk though, right? Because that's not.
Yeah, we should get into that level of detail, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So can we move on then?
Yeah.
We're moving on to 10.7, True Shine Janitorial Painting Services issue report. And Robbie, you have the floor.
So there's enough of this. So it's final consideration for the home-based business of Arno. For the True Shine Janitorial. There was only a few concerns raised on just location exactly at the town office, but there wasn't any real concerns brought forward, and I've read the report, but any questions about it?
Anybody have questions?
No, and based on the report, there's no concerns from the neighbors brought
No,
forward?
no concerns were brought forward. We recommend approval of it. Meets the requirements for home-based business.
Okay. Then I guess we need.
I'll move that having completed the discretionary use process for home-based business of R1 low-density residential district, the application for said use of the building located on Lot 1, Block 52, be the town of Orange approved for the current calendar year upon receipt of all fees due, conditional to the continued compliance of section 4-15 of bylaw number 572/15.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, motion's carried. Thank you, Robbie. I guess gonna be here, okay.
And then I'll close it.
Robbie, go ahead for the doggone cute pet spa.
So we have another application for home-based business in the residential district. Small dog grooming at their shopping property. This is the first initial property council, and then if you guys are in favor of it, we can start the discretionary use process for home-based business.
Again, the same question as before, in regards to the neighbors, has that process happened?
That hasn't happened yet.
Oh, okay.
This is the first intake.
Oh, okay, thank you.
If you guys approve, then we'll.
Yeah, I've taken my, one of my dogs to a salon PA within the residential area, no issues, done by appointment, no problems.
I actually met this person while I was out door knocking, and has been doing this for a long time. She's had a home-based business doing this before. She sounded very knowledgeable about it, so I'm happy to see that she's got her application in.
The motion on the table?
I'll move that council consider discretionary use application for a home-based business at lot 34, block 10, plan 66EA09457.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, call the question, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. All right, 10.9 service lease subdivision issue.
Maybe we should draw that maybe.
You guys can start.
Oh, this one grabs my plans. Just in case, y'all read the report.
Sure. Hello, how are you?
So yourself and Robbie are presenting this
Can you just grab some pencils? Do you want to start? Go ahead.
So, what's the deal? Like, what was going on? Like, I didn't know.
Sorry, I just wanted to get my plans and stuff.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
But just for discussion, or who starts it off, or?
I believe that you.
Yeah, Robbie can start it off, and Sagar and I will answer other questions the council may have.
Well, which report did you guys see? The original one or the changed one?
They just have the recent one.
They just
We're dealing with the one that we changed, Robbie, and I made council aware of that, so just focus on that one.
Okay, basically, we received an application for a service lease for the Co-op Park area there, lots 1 and 2, block BB, in regards to a quick serve restaurant. I guess it's just initial intake. I guess we have a response to the community planning branch in regards to some questions they've asked for the plan of proposed subdivision. Since the lease is more than 10 years, it needs ministerial approval. So that's why they go through this lease application process. And it's also addressing, it's not just for the new quick serve restaurant, it's trying to address the other service lease for the Dairy Queen that's on the property. When that went through, we didn't do it 100% correctly, I guess, with the CERP. Since the lease is more than 10 years, they needed ministerial approval. So there's that service lease subdivisions for those both restaurants on the property. So there's some stuff, we've got a bunch of questions to answer for community planning branch. A lot of the reports are the same, but we're still in discussion with the developer in regards to some of our initial concerns. We had some concerns about, fire route access. We're unknown water sewer capacity. We don't know what they're going to be using, and also we need confirmation. I don't know if Sarah's going to be chiming in on that stuff, but our town's capacity, as well as there's 3. Sorry, fire route access, fire hydrant also. Building is pretty more than 90 meters away from the hydrant, so building code require you have to have a hydrant nearby, so there's a little bit of work on that one. Let's see what else is there. Any questions? A lot of those, well, I mean, this is just initial to approve in principle, and then once we dig into a bit more, we're still waiting. Sagar's followed up with the developer in regards to some questions that we have, and we're just seeing stuff to come back.
So just to be clear to council tonight, we're not getting into the servicing side of this particular development. This is to continue the process to allow the co-op to carry on and provide us with the information that we need in relation to some of the issues that Robbie spoke of, and in regard to water and sewer servicing, fire access, fire hydrants, and servicing agreement. Those are kind of tomorrow issues that we're going to kind of deal with as we move through this. So this is kind of the beginning of a process, and I will say that this has been a process that has probably taken far too long, longer than it really needed to be, and we appreciate the patience of the Lakeland Co-op in dealing with this thing. It was kind of a combination of a lot of things, and I think we finally got it to the point where, from our point of view with the town administratively, we're comfortable with how this is starting to proceed so that the development can actually occur. And I'll stop it there and we'll respond to questions, and I can direct them to our technical staff if we need to be.
All right, I have some questions.
Go ahead.
So, I understand you probably have a pretty good handle on ensuring sufficient water and sewer capacity, that it won't be piped off the co-op service lines like Dairy Queen is, that there's sufficient water pressure.
We're getting, what we're doing is we've requested Lakeland's engineering company to provide us additional data so that we can accurately do that. What we're trying to get away from is guessing those type of questions, and now that we have our own civil engineer on staff, we're in a better position to deal with that. So we've requested that information, and it's forthcoming.
Okay, the concern that I want to have hopefully dealt with through this subdivision is correcting or improving the parking lot for circulation, access, egress. Like the orientation of the approaches, are they going to move? Are we going to change drainage? The parking lot right now parks along the actual right-of-way of Gaybush Road, so is there consideration of that? And how are we going to safely create access for the lots south of that particular set of lots?
Well, first of all, the lot south is not in play here at all, and it isn't part of our consideration. We have discussed.
But it should be.
But, well, no, we've discussed with the developer, and they've given us their assurance that there's nothing moving on there. So we're dealing with the matter at hand. And that's where this process really got off the rails, was worrying too much about what could happen in the south rather than dealing with what's exactly happening on this particular development. So we've limited our review at this point to what we know, and what we do know is the application in front of us. One of the reasons we required and requested the servicing information was for existing capacity, and we're also going to be, as we move forward into 2021, the operations department is going to be looking at and dealing with some of the issues we have in that area for pressure, which we know exist if increased density occurs to the south. So for us right now, that's a moral issue that we're cognizant of, but we're not going to burden the applicant with doing anything more than they need to do for what's in front of them. The other issues that you spoke of with regard to access and egress and fire suppression, we had preliminary discussions with them, and they're aware of our concerns on those very matters, in particular fire lanes and the existing parking scheme for the existing co-op. Some of this with the applicant is we're dealing with matters that have been generally accepted from years gone by, so we're trying to correct them in fairness to the applicant. And the surface lease with Dairy Queen is a part of that. That was never done right probably to begin with. We're correcting it now, and some of the other issues that you mentioned, Councillor, we're going to be addressing as we move forward with the applicant, possibly in servicing to see how we deal with each and every one.
Okay.
So when the original...
Sorry, Joe, just one moment. Abby's going to respond to that. Go ahead, Abby.
Oh, I just want to stress how important it is for me, the fact that we don't jeopardize existing right-of-ways or at least planned future right-of-ways or changes to that, and have the proper discussions so that we don't, I know it's a tomorrow discussion, but it's still a today discussion when you're talking about current development. A surface lease is still a permanent development.
As I said, we've had those today discussions with, they're aware of our concerns, and it's not like they're not. So we have had initial discussion, but again, we don't want to impede their ability to move forward because of that right now, because we don't have to.
Okay.
Joe, go ahead. Okay, there was, when the original development was put in place for the marketplace, there was a road that was put in there, Weaver's Drive that was in there. It was somewhat compromised by the development, the original development. Is it still gonna be intact going down there? Is this development gonna infringe on that drive, or is that
No,
gonna take you farther down to the end?
The two service leases are on either side. One's on lot 1. There's actually two. There's lot 1 and lot 2.
Okay.
The quick serve restaurant is on lot 1 and it's clear of Gabrus Drive. It's set back appropriately and meets the setbacks. Same as they go for the existing Dairy Queen there. That it is on lot 2 and it's on appropriately set back. As per the.
What we wouldn't do is we wouldn't permit the developer to build on town property. We own it, and there's no, we have an interest registered on that, so, you know, that's why when we got the initial plan, we made sure it was away from our water main and everything that's here. So they're staying right away from our legal right away. We're fine with that.
I got a question.
Just that they didn't do it originally.
I got a question, Dean, or maybe Shigar can answer this for us. Whose responsibility is it to bring that Gabrus Street up to a road-bearing standard? Because we can all see with the increase in traffic going to that present restaurant there, the parking lot, I'm sure, calls for a certain load-bearing degree of asphalt and sub-base prep. Whose responsibility is it to bring that Gabrus Drive up to a load-bearing standard?
Well, that's a real good question, because part of there's two things at play here. One is the yesterday existing issue that was never dealt with, and the today issue that you speak of in regard to this. Like the facts of the matter are, Gabrus Drive is a legal registered right away, so we own it right now. And you know if my opinion is that if increased density occurred and other elements, that we'd have to use that as an opener in order to discuss that more with the current owner of the property. And it likely wasn't dealt with the original development for whatever reason. I can't speak to that, but that's about the best answer I can give you on it.
Yeah, it's just for the record, I guess, so.
Yeah, maybe I can add more on that. As per my experience, like we ask owner to hire some professional to design as per traffic, and we ask them to meet all the standards and codes, so they will be responsible for all the designs and standards. And we as a town, like we just try to check in whether they meet those standards or not, and we approve based on their design and detailed specifications.
So just pencil that in when you're having these discussions with these owners, I guess.
And part of it moving forward, council, is that, you know, we've never been in a position to establish our own design standards to anybody coming in. We've reacted to what's been given to us, and now that we have the in-house technical expertise, then we're requesting a higher level of information from applicants, and this is a good example of that.
Just a quick comment, if that's okay. When it comes to two leased sites, now having a second restaurant proposed on the site, do we have in place, or are we able to develop appropriate servicing fee structure that is fair to that developer in light of what has been allowed in the past but also moving forward, considering the increase of demand on our infrastructure?
Short answer is no. The town of La Ronge does not have any, to my knowledge, any related development fees, and it's certainly something moving forward that has to be looked at, there's no question, but I'm not aware of any levy fees that are in place right now to hook into an existing line, other than it's 100% of your cost, but we don't prorate what that cost would be, and we have no capital levy fees that I'm aware of.
Okay. We should put that on our agenda in the future.
It's already there.
Any other questions? All right, do we have any motions on the table with this?
I think there is one at the end, or, oh, sorry.
The administrative recommendation is to basically approve it in principle and to direct administration to work with the developer in regards to service agreements, fire route access, and water and sewer capacity assessment. That's the recommendation, but.
Also,
Okay, do you have a seconder?
I will second.
Any further discussion?
Just in regards to, again, to clear my mind, that, again, you've already answered this, I think, Dean, but just help me out here. In regards to the water availability to the industrial park, that will be addressed prior to this moving forward.
That is, yeah, we need to confirm, we need to know what they have, and also we need to know what we could do and supply, because I've heard various things and don't have the right answers.
Okay.
As
long as it's addressed. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? We'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Okay, motion is carried. All right, we move on to 10.10. This is the zoning change request R1 to C1 to facilitate a mixed-use development proposed health services and dwelling units around.
I think Thomas wants to come for the zoning change.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So this is a zoning change request we're trying to use with a different application form, Form D. Basically, this is responding to, go back one step, sorry. At the end of October, a resident came to council, made a delegation to council in regards to a health services out of their property on Orange Avenue. We went back to them, asked for further information. Currently, health service is not permitted in the R1 zoning district. So he's made an application to change the zoning on his lot to something suitable that would fit health services as a permitted use. Now, I think that overall it'll be a mixed-use development, so discretionary use, but first off, it would be as a requesting the council wants to, we have to address some of the zoning bylaw if council feels they want to move forward with this.
Just for the record, administration did receive approximately 10 letters from various neighboring residents who are opposed to this development for various reasons. I just want to kind of put that on the record that we have received that already. And depending on council's decision, if council chose to proceed with the respective requirements to fulfill this developer's request, more public consultation opportunities would also be provided with that as well. So just as a note.
Just for council's information, like we've read into the record, there are objections to this, and for the record as well, we're recommending that council deny the application. We don't feel that at the end of the day, this is a good use of within that particular zoning district for a lot of the reasons that we do state in the report. We feel that this is a more appropriate use in a properly zoned district, and I think that having read through the objections of the neighbors, I think that it speaks to why we have land use regulations in place and not necessarily to mix uses. I think when people buy a property, their expectation is that the zoning and the uses will remain consistent with the legislation in front of the city council. And this is an example of that to us, and we would strongly recommend denying this application as presented.
I want to thank administration for doing that. I was going to speak against it for the sake that it would set a dangerous precedent in that area. Other applications could come forward without any recourse on town not approving. And there's no control over, once it's zoned to a commercial, there's no control over that land. If it's sold a year down the road, and they usually change, it could be something different. And so it's, thank you for advising us that, and I'll certainly support that decision.
Okay. Anyone want a motion, anything?
I'd like to move to deny the application as presented.
So just as a point of clarification, we cannot have a negative motion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just, we can have a motion to approve it, and then if council is in favor, carry it, or if not, defeat it.
Okay. Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, just sorry.
Can I,
It's the first time
can
we-
I ask for a recorded vote, please?
Absolutely. Was there a seconder?
Because whoever makes the motion is going to vote against it.
Right.
So, sorry, did you get a motion?
No,
I'll
I think we have to re-motion it, right?
Yeah.
I'll
The
make that.
motion is to approve it, we're just recommending deny it, that's not the
Yeah.
resolution, just to be clear.
Oh,
Okay.
So go ahead, Councillor Watt, you just.
sorry, can I get a clarification, please?
Administration is recommending denying the application, but the resolution, we can't, because you can't have a negative resolution, it will be in the affirmative, and then if you're not in favor, you'll defeat it.
Okay, I'm just gonna note that the resolution on record on our digital says that council deny the application.
Yeah,
There's
I
a-
made that change here, it just won't reflect it where you see it right now.
Okay, can we read the resolution?
So right now, it would say that council approve the application to rezone property lot H, block 4, plan 10/20/14/73 from R1 low density residential to C1 commercial, general commercial, to accommodate a mixed use development accommodating a health services, dental office, and a dwelling at or above grade.
Okay, and you,
To approve.
As per that resolution, I'll make that motion.
okay, do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay.
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 It's recorded, so everybody's good.
It's everybody's recorded, yeah. So that looks like it's unanimous.
Okay, resolution is defeated. All right, moving on. I think that's it from you, Robbie, right?
I think that's it.
That's it, Robbie, thank you.
Thank you, Robbie, appreciate it. 10.11, Chamber of Commerce issue report, Dean.
Yeah, this is a request we received from the chamber, kind of as a follow-up to something that was discussed at council on Christmas lights and snow sculpture. And the only reason we brought it here is because it was brought up in council chambers. Current policy of council is not to make donations to any entity at all, and that's what anybody that that's what we advise those that ask for donations. But because this originated in council chambers by elected member, we thought it appropriate to bring it back here and for you to determine what you wanted to do with this. But your current policy is to not fund these things.
Is there any question, any discussion? I mean, my take on it, and just talking with some of the other councillors, I think we have to be very, very careful here. If we set a precedence by donating, or and you know, it's a great initiative by the chamber, and I applaud them for that. But you know, that really opens us up for any group to come along and ask for donations, and I think we have to be very careful here.
Actually, over the years, we've had that policy well before 2016. This was in place for many years. And one example of what we did to break that policy was the Churchill would have a yearbook. And we would always donate $100 towards the Churchill yearbook. So there were things that we did that over the years that didn't conform with the policy, but for a good reason.
There's a difference between donating and buying advertising in the yearbook as an example. So part of this, just if I may, if council's interested in, looking at this type of thing, then it's really an area that you need a policy on, because right now it's no. And the mayor is correct that you would be setting a precedent by doing that. But if it's something that this council feels you want to look at, maybe not today, then it's something that you could direct us to look into if that's the will of council.
The only, I guess, point of information that I can rise on is I do know that I believe there was a request from another nonprofit organization in the community. I think it was specifically regarding Hugh. You might be able to help me out on this. Was the Elks Drive-In, which was also, December 14, 2016 motion to not give monetary donations, I believe, in past practice has been averted. I don't know what the word, ignored. In events where it is trying to bring services to the community. This is more of a promotional event in our community. However, I believe past practice, as like I said, not to contravene what you had said there, Dean, about the motion in 2016, but I believe if we go back into our financial records, I believe the town did donate to the Elks Drive-In movie for rentals of equipment. So I know that we have in the past donated towards that. I don't know if that was for advertising. Maybe Hugh, if you remember a little bit more clearly on what that was, you can maybe provide some more insight to that.
No, I can't recall.
All I know is that on our shift, we'd never recommend going against council policy. That's your job to do that, not ours.
Okay, does anybody want to bring a motion?
Because failing that, it'll be lost if there's no interest in them, and we can move on.
So I guess my question is, why was the recommendation made then to approach a community group to pursue the action suggested at our last council meeting if this policy was in place and we were not made aware of the policy at that time?
I do believe at that point, it was to turn around and get a nonprofit or another organization to put this together. At no point did we ever disclose that we would be contributing funds to that organization.
If we were to look back in the meeting minutes, I believe that we did say that we may consider supporting it.
Well, that's what you're doing tonight. You're considering, let's not get hung up on semantics here. Is the direction came and that's how it played out. We, whether you were aware or not, we apologize for that. That is the current policy. We're advising you that now.
So our only other option here is if you want to motion something, we can decide on it, and then we can vote on it, I guess.
I'd like to make a motion that the town of La Ronge, in the spirit of community spirit and well-being, make an exception to the existing policy on donations and provide a moderate, small amount as a donation to the community Christmas lights / snow sculpture contest.
I think as a point of order, it has to be specific in nature.
You need to name an amount.
Yeah.
$100.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Say nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion is carried. All right, so that's all the new business, correct?
Before we go on camera, did we want to do the ballot for the Regional Waste Management Corporation?
Did you receive everybody's?
I did, I do have the results. So, 5 votes for Councillor Bashara, 4 votes for Councillor Herdisky, and 3 votes for Councillor Watt. So, I guess the motion.
I don't know how this works, I'm sorry. We want
My administrative recommendation, I guess, on this would be, I'm assuming you're going with the 2 highest. would be, appoints councillors, Bashara and Martiski to the Lackawanna Regional Waste Management Corporation. That would be my recommendation as, on behalf of administration.
So do we have does someone want to motion that? Right, is that how we do it? Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the results of the secret ballot and appoint Councillor Bashara and Councillor Verdesky to the Regional Waste and Recycling Board.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Only thing I will say, just to Councillor Watt, just as a point of interest for you, there was discussion about the number at large, and perhaps that's an avenue that you could look towards, because obviously, as you know, it's up to the board. And thank you so much for your interest. Is there any further discussion beyond that? All right, a public question. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Okay. Motion is carried. So we can.
So I would like to move that as we have issues to discuss which are exempted from public discussion under the Local Authority Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act and the Municipalities Act, going